In October 2007, one of the richest men in the world walked into an order for the biggest passenger plane ever put into service, an Airbus A380, 2 full decks, a plane designed to carry somewhere between 525 and 800 people. He already owned a Boeing 747, fully fitted out, and when a reporter asked him, to his face, why he had ordered it, his answer was not about luxury. It was not about status. He said he wanted to sell it to someone else and make some money. He never took delivery. He never flew it. And today, you can walk through that exact aircraft because it sits in a museum. This is the story of a jumbo jet that a billionaire treated like a used car, and almost everything you have seen about it online is wrong. If you appreciate this type of content, hit that like button, and let's get into it right now. Prince Alwaleed's order means that Airbus's sales success in the corporate jet market now extends from its smallest aircraft, the A318 Elite, all the way up to its largest, the A380 Flying Palace. That is, the manufacturer, on the record, calling it a flying palace. Hold on to that phrase, because it is doing a lot of work in this story. Now, the first thing worth correcting is what he actually ordered, because he did not order a new airplane. According to Forbes, who obtained the paperwork, he ordered serial number 002, the second A380 ever assembled, a test aircraft, the kind manufacturers use to fly the certification program, load it up with instruments, and prove the design works. Forbes describes it plainly, essentially a second-hand plane. One source told him it was about 23,000 pounds heavier than the version Airbus was building for airlines at the time, because test aircraft carry equipment that customer aircraft do not. So why would you want that? Because of what he paid. The list price for a new A380 was over $300 million. By 2012, Airbus was listing the A380-800 at $390 million. Alwaleed got it down to $130 million.
That is not a typo. Forbes published selected pages of the purchase agreement, $130 million, structured with a down payment of $19.5 million, roughly half the balance in yearly installments, and the rest due on delivery. And Airbus agreed to hand it over as new engines, new systems, in July 2010. Now stop and look at that deal for a second. He is buying the second aeroplane off the line, secondhand, refurbished to new condition for about a third of what a new one costs. That is not a man buying a flying palace. That is a man buying an asset at a discount. Then the timing went wrong. His core holding was Citigroup stock. In late 2007, it started falling. And according to sources who spoke to Forbes and did not want to be named, his employees were given an instruction: find someone else to buy the plane. They found someone. In March 2008, a UK aircraft leasing company called Chartwell Aviation offered $268 million for it. He turned it down. A source with knowledge of the negotiation told Forbes he wanted nothing less than $300 million. Think about what that means. He had a contract at $130 million. He was offered $268 million. That is roughly double his money on an aircraft he had not taken delivery of. And he held out for more. Be honest with me in the comments. Would you have taken the $268 million or held out for the $300? I read every comment on these. And then, in October 2008, as the financial crisis was taking hold, a Forbes reporter sat down with him in Saudi Arabia and asked the obvious question: why order a jumbo jet at all when you already have a fully fitted 747? Does one person really need a plane built for up to 800 passengers? His answer, quoted directly, "I want to sell it to someone else and make some money." That is the whole story in one sentence. It was never a palace. It was a position. And it went wrong slowly, in a way that is almost uncomfortable to read. He began defaulting on payments to Airbus. Two sources told Forbes it was not because he could not afford them. It was because he did not want the plane. At one point, sources say he paid Airbus an additional $10 million just to get a 6-month delay on delivery.
Sit with that. $10 million. Not to buy something, to postpone being given something he had already agreed to buy. By the spring of 2010, he was trying a different exit. He opened negotiations to sell the aircraft to the King of Saudi Arabia. In May 2010, a contract was drawn up to sell it to King Abdullah for $150 million. Forbes links that document too, though it is worth saying clearly that the copy they published is unsigned. If you are finding this interesting, consider subscribing. This channel covers how money and power actually move underneath the story you are usually told, and there is a full series linked in the description if you want more of it. Then comes the document that actually ends it. On the 26th of June 2011, Airbus and Kingdom 5KR199, the corporate entity Al-Walid was using to buy the plane, signed what is called a novation agreement. A novation is a substitution. One party steps out of a contract and another steps in their place. The party stepping in was the Saudi Ministry of Finance.
The contract was signed by the Saudi Minister of Finance, by the Airbus executive John Leahy, and by what appears to be the prince himself on behalf of his company. So, as of the middle of 2011, on paper, the buyer was the state. And here is the part that makes this more than an aviation story. In February 2012, 8 months after that signature, Kingdom Holdings' chief financial officer, Shadi Sanbar, told Forbes that the A380 had not been sold. He claimed it as an asset belonging to the prince, and he valued it at $330 million, ahead of the billionaires list. Forbes did not accept that figure. They marked it down to $150 million for the list, and wrote afterwards that it probably should have been half of that. A year later, the same CFO told them the plane had been sold, without naming a buyer, a price, or a date. Asked again, he said this: "The prince has not disclosed nor wishes to disclose why he sold the plane. His Royal Highness asserts that it is none of anyone's business why he chose to sell the plane." Now, I want to be straight with you about what we actually know here, because that matters more than the story being entertaining. The documents are real. The purchase agreement, the novation, the draft contract with the king, Forbes published them. But a lot of the color around them comes from unnamed sources in a single article. The $268 million offer, the $10 million delay payment, the defaults, those all rest on people who would not put their names to it. Airbus was asked and said only that the company does not disclose information about its customers' planes. The Saudi embassy in Washington never replied. So, documented spine, single outlet detail. You should hold those two things differently, and I am not going to pretend otherwise. Which leaves the last question. Where is it now? Not scrapped, not flying for a shake, not converted into anything. On the 29th of August 2019, that aircraft, serial number 002, was towed a short distance across Toulouse and parked at the Aeroscopia Museum. They built walkways to both decks. You can buy a ticket and stand inside it. The interior was never fitted. There is no stable, no hawk pen, no glass lift. And this is the part I want to be careful about, because it is the thing almost every video on this subject gets wrong, including the ones that think they are debunking it. Those famous images, the spiral staircase, the lounges, the marble, are renders. They came from a New York design house called Edis Doré Industrial Design, and they were published by Flight Global in February 2007. Al-Walid placed his order in October 2007. The images came out 8 months before the order existed. And Flight Global said at the time, in plain terms, that it was not known whether those pictures were even for the launch customer. The client was never identified. The moving map in one of the renders shows Arabic script and a flight starting in Dubai, which tells you the client was probably in the Middle East and tells you nothing more than that. So when you see those images captioned as the inside of the prince's jet, that caption is doing something nobody has ever confirmed. So the biggest passenger aircraft ever built, ordered by one of the richest men alive, bought at a discount, offered at a profit, refused, defaulted on, delayed, handed to a government, and argued over in a billionaire ranking, ended up as an exhibit, something you walk through on a Saturday afternoon. He got his wish in a way. He did sell it to someone else. He just never made the money. If you want the other side of this, what happens when the ultra-wealthy move the money itself rather than the aeroplane? I made a video on exactly that, and you can watch it right here.